And obviously there'll be more information in the book, but we can do a Q&A at the end of this as well to answer any specific questions you might have. So I'm going to sort of summarize some things, and then we'll take it from there. So today we'll talk about ways to plan your course. Now, again, I'm going to assume a lot of us teach university. If you teach in public schools, then some of the timing might be a little bit different, and we can discuss the ins and outs of that in the Q&A afterwards. But we will talk about some classroom activities, common errors that students and teachers make in their presentations, and then we'll talk about ways to give feedback and do some assessment if that's going to be part of a specific presentation skills class. Otherwise, I find that teachers end up grading and assessing the product more than the actual presentation when they have students come up in front of the class. So we'll talk about how to make it more presentation specific as far as feedback and assessment go. All right, so we'll start with planning your course. In my case, I would be teaching informative and then persuasive, and then I would have a sales presentation component. So those would be the three main categories where I would have them do their presentation. So informative and persuasive can be a little bit confusing for people when they think about what they are the first time, but think about this. Informative would be last summer vacation. Well, I wish I was in Italy. But if someone said, yeah, last summer vacation, I was in Italy, I want to tell you about it, that'd be informative. But if someone said, there are lots of great places to go in Europe, but I'm going to tell you why you should go to Italy, then it's persuasive. But if it's, I have an amazing tour package that you can buy through my travel agency, well, then we have a sales presentation. So it depends on what the goal of the presentation is. And the students need to understand that if the goal is slightly different, then the way they're going to put it together and their introduction and maybe their action step at the end would all be a little bit different. And of course, if it's a sales presentation, there's different goals as far as talking about, you know, what they're going to get, building value. There's different things that go into a sales presentation. And of course, not forgetting to mention the price, justifying the price, and then saying where that product or service is available. You'd be surprised how many students forget to mention that little nugget at the end. They finish something and you're like, damn, I would like to have that. And next thing you know, they thank you very much, and you don't know where to get it. And that can be frustrating. I also teach the elements of a group presentation. I think group presentations are one of those things that you see in classrooms and you don't see as many in the real world. Occasionally for example, at a teacher's conference, English teaching conference, you will see partners, so co-researchers or co-workers get up, and in that case, the most annoying thing in my case is when they ping pong back and forth too much. So it's like, and now Mike's going to talk about this, and now Tim's going to talk about this, and now and I feel I'm just doing this instead of I'm here for a reason. I'm going to take care of mine, and now my partner is going to do the other part, and I get out of the way. I don't like when they ping pong back and forth. If you're different, you know what? I mean, have your students do whatever you like. But in my case, for group presentations, one of the key elements is the handoff, right? Having them hand off to the next presenter. So it's like, thank you very much. Next, Tim is going to talk about this. And then while I'm stepping away, Tim's getting his part set up, and the audience doesn't have that awkward gap. They know what's coming, and so they can sort of mentally prepare for that. And I find that audiences react better to that. So in my course, if we had a 16-week semester, for example, this may be a little bit surprising to you, but I don't have them get in front of the class one by one. I don't have them get in front of the class and have the spotlight on them until week 5. So you're maybe thinking, well, gosh, what do they do the first 4 weeks? And I will explain that to you in the second section. But yeah, I don't put them in the most stressful situation until they've had time to really make some mistakes, get more comfortable working in a table or a group format. And I'll explain that in a bit. But yeah, you remember being a kid and the teacher says, oh, Kevin, please come to the front of the room and And you're like, oh my God, your heart's beating out of your chest, and like, no one prepared me for this, right? So when you feel like, okay, now I've done this enough times, now I'm ready to try it in the big leagues, it's a whole different feeling. So I certainly, in a presentation skills course where that is the focus of the course, we really work on the micro skills before we put them up in front of the class. And I find the results are much better. Even if I'm working with a bunch of people from a big corporation, if we have enough time, I'll still do it the same way. I'll have them practice at tables before I have them come up in front of their coworkers. So for me, the midterm exam halfway through the semester is when we have our first graded solo presentation, which means that's the first time that the feedback or assessment actually counts for anything. So by that time, they've had probably 3 times that they've been able to be in front of the class purely to have feedback. Feedback from me and feedback from their classmates. And I'll talk to you at the end of this about what sort of feedback I expect them to give and what feedback I will give. And then we'll talk a little bit about assessment at the end as well. But yeah, no graded presentation until week 8. I know, shocked faces. If I could see your faces, they'd all be shocked right now. So for my course, I added job interview skills to the last quarter of the course, and I found that that sort of transitioned very well, that a lot of the things that they were doing in the course naturally worked for a job interview. The things, the eye contact, the volume, the preparation, all those things could move easily and naturally to a job interview thing. So that worked out well. And so in my case, the final exam was actually a job interview in my office where I did want to see them respond somewhat naturally to the questions we'd sort of prepped during that last quarter of the semester. And I did want to see presentation type skills present, pun intended, when we did that. So I thought that was an important part of the course. And certainly when I did that with graduate students, they really appreciated that part as well, because they were, trying to get ready to get jobs and things like that. So they found it very useful. This is just the first quarter, but if there's anything about this that you guys want to ask, I will see if I can pull up the chat.
There was no question so far, Tim, that you need to respond to at the moment. I've saved one question that would work at the end.
Okay, sounds good. We'll move on then. Thanks, Mike. Okay, so for classroom activities, again, I work through stages, and I want them, it's like how you learn how to dog paddle and how to float before you get in there and start doing the butterfly in the swimming pool, things like that. So the first thing I would have them do is I would certainly have them prepare a short presentation. So it would be something usually for solo presentations in my course, they would be 3 to 4 minutes long. Okay. And if you think about it, I remember going to a really great presentation, oh gosh, more than 10 years ago, talking about the similarities in structure between a good short presentation and a 5-paragraph essay. How you're sort of going to have an introduction, you might have 3 key points, and then you're going to have your sort of conclusion and wrap up at the end. And I really thought about that, and I'm like, yeah, I want, whether it's informative, generally for a 3 to 4 minute presentation, you'll have your 45-second introduction, you'll hit each key area for about a minute each, and then you'll wrap it up at the end. Well, that works pretty good, 3 to 4 minutes. So I would first have them do it. Let's put our tables in groups of 4, and I would have them sit, and so they would have 3 audience members. And the first time they would do it, they would just get a feeling for, number one, is their content structured in a fairly logical way? And were they familiar enough with the content that they could get it out and, educate their classmates on that topic in 3 to 4 minutes? And they were sitting down. Okay, that was the key. And that's very important because the eye level is the same. And it's a weird thing, and we'll talk about this when we get to standing, how when the eye level changes everything, it really affects their ability to naturally talk to each other. They don't get as stressed. So they do it one time like that. And then either you could, if they, really made a lot of mistakes, you could have them move different tables and have a new audience and do it again sitting. You could do it as many times as you like if you have time for that. Then each person goes around and gives their 3 to 4 minute presentation with a little bit of feedback. And then we have them then at their tables stand up. So even going from same eye level to being above everybody is a big change. And they need to feel with that little bit added stress how that's going to affect their ability to present. So I thought that was interesting as well, okay? And then after they've done that a few times, they start to relax, they get their timing down, they start to note that I've got person 1, person 2, and person 3. I need to sort of look at all of them and not stare at one of them, not the person in the middle. So we get a little bit of natural eye rotation going on there as well. And if they're doing that, they're not going to be over-reliant on their notes. And so that's very important. I see Kevin's question there about the age groups, nationalities, culture. Anytime you're working with a culture that's going to be a bit more reserved, i.e. East Asians, for example, where I work in Korea, that works a lot better with them. If they're naturally outgoing and gregarious, you may be able to reduce your reliance on some of the steps, but do whatever works best for you is what I would say. So again, if I was working with the really outgoing people, I don't want to stereotype, but the students I've had from the Middle East have been a lot more outgoing than the students from East Asia, for example. So if I was working with them and they came in there day one, they're like, "Hey man, how's it going?" Then I may not worry about it so much, or I could only do it one pass or something like that. So somebody get in front of the class, like I said, week 5, feedback, 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 first graded presentation, week 8. Okay, so again, eye contact and eye rotation, that's what EC and ER here. Eye contact, but also eye rotation, not just looking straight ahead, but making sure you hit all the different parts of the audience. Also, it's important that they try, if they have a person to their side and then 2 people in front of them, they sort of rotate around so that now everyone is inside 90 degrees, right? So again, you want to position yourself at that table, maybe on the corner, so that everyone is in 90 degrees in front of you. That's going to be very important because you don't want to unnaturally look to your side like that. So you want to put yourself in the right position. So then, as I said, time management, usually I'll have someone ask someone else to keep the time on their phone, to check the time. I find that that's very important for them to do. When you go to a conference, how many times do they go over their time? The presenter, teachers, educators, who should have this internal clock that's boom, 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 ready to go. And yet they get nervous, right? They get nervous because they're not talking to kids anymore. Now they're talking to contemporaries, and suddenly heart starts pounding out of their chest and they've got so much to talk about and they go over their time. It could be very frustrating. Let's see here. The question I see is adapting to the virtual classroom. Yeah, again, the virtual presentation, online presentation, is a very different animal than an in-class live presentation. So obviously you can't have them do standing up and sitting down, but what tech does allow you to do, let's say you wanted to have them practice in stages, so maybe having them narrate a PowerPoint. You can actually do the recording, so you can record your narration over each slide. So you can have them submit PowerPoint presentations where they narrate each slide as a way to get a feeling for how long it would take them to talk about each slide, what they would say about each slide, something like that. So then they would put it together, maybe submit that, and then later practice getting on Zoom or something like this and then giving their presentation. So as far as the practice element of it goes, maybe having them narrate that. Yeah, okay, and so Zoom to record the PowerPoint also is very good. We'll talk about that in the assessment time. All right, trying to keep on schedule here, All right, common errors. And I'm very proud of the picture I found here for this slide. I think it really does show a lot And I love the woman's expression, like, oh my God, how can we get out of here soon? I think it's really, really fantastic. Okay, so one of the big issues that I see, and again, this can be in a presentation that is a plenary session at a big thing, at a big conference. It could be just like in a breakout session. It could be with your students. I've seen this a lot of time, is that the introduction is weak. You're not telling me why I'm there. You're not giving me a hook. You're not saying, thanks for coming to today's presentation. And also the introduction of why you are the expert about this, why you should be the one I'm listening to. They sort of come in and be like, hi, I'm going to talk about this. Let's get started. It sounds like, it comes across as shut up and listen. And I'm not a big fan of shut up and listen, So here, when the introduction is weak or incomplete, and again, there's no hook. Funny story, I'll tell you. I remember I was coaching this master's student. He was going in to give a big summary of his research to his advisors, and he wanted to practice it with me. And it was about 10 minutes long. And he starts talking, and it's technical, it's chemistry, it's nerd, chemistry, figures, nerd. And about 8.5 minutes in, he goes, and so that's when we found out that this thing that we were using to detect toxic gas, where it used to take 10 minutes, now takes 0.01 seconds. And I said, wait, what? It took 10 seconds to detect toxic gas, and your research made it possible in 0.01 seconds? How did you do that? He said, that's what I've been talking about for the last 8.5 minutes. And I said, that needed to be at the beginning. That's how you get people's attention. He goes, hey, you know what? They used to take 10 seconds to detect this toxic gas, and it was killing people. We found a way to detect that same gas in 0.01 seconds. Let me tell you how we did it. I'm in. I'm all in. But instead, he was talking about the how, and he put the how before the wow. It should be the wow before the how. So another thing that I find is tech fails. They haven't brought their USB or emailed it to the class computer to get it on there. So they spend the first minute bent over, trying to plug in their USB, opening everything up, and it takes forever. Or they tried to put sound in and the sound didn't work, something like that. There's a lot of issues that can come up with tech. And if you're not prepared, even like knowing which lights to turn off in the front of the room when you want to do something like that, there's lots of issues that can come up there. Going over your time, that's something very, not good in a professional setting. When you're like this world-renowned person that comes in and you're scheduled from 10 to 11 and 11:15, you're still talking. Sorry, that's not professional. And so certainly at the classroom level, we want to stress the importance of time management. And you know what? No one complains if you finish early. No one ever says, ooh, 5 more minutes for coffee or networking or going to the restroom. Oh gosh, what a jerk. And if you go under time, you can take more time for questions. You can talk to people one-on-one. But when you go over time, everyone's stressed. They're trying to get out of there. The next presenter's trying to come in. There's just so many things that go wrong. So I really, in my classroom, want to make sure they learn not to go over their time. So again, the connection issue is also very important, connecting with your audience. When they are turned around and reading from the big screen, when they're looking at their notes, when they're checking the ghosts that are up on the ceiling, when they're looking at their shoes, they're not connecting to the audience. And so the connection to the audience is very important, and I want to have them do that in their presentations. Busy slides with too much information. You see how I've animated this slide? So each talking point comes up when I'm ready for you to see it. Not something that I'm talking about number 1 up here and you're looking at number 6 down there already, because that creates, these sort of eyes and ears fighting with each other. So I want what I'm talking about and you're listening, I want you to see that at that time. So when there's too much information on one slide, it creates an impasse for communication and understanding, not good. And you know what? You'd be surprised. Low volume and energy, like when they're nervous and they're trying to be cool or whatever, monotone, it's boring. So again, they don't have to be over the top, but I do want to see some energy, some enthusiasm when they're in front of the room. And again, I would tell my students, if your heart is beating and you're a little bit worried and nervous, turn that nervousness into enthusiasm. Bigger gestures, louder voice, something like that. So turn that negative into a positive and let your adrenaline help you instead of hurt you. And then again, when they're doing a group presentation, again, poor teamwork. I hate to see when someone is not telling their team member, you've got 1 minute, finish up, or that they're letting someone go way over their time. And then the next person says, well, you know what? I'm not going to shorten mine just because they went over. And so the whole group time goes over. Poor transitions or handoffs to the next presenter. All those things can create poor teamwork and make the overall group presentation not so good, right? So you got to watch out there. And again, you can give a fantastic 3 to 4 minute presentation or a group presentation that's 10 or 12 minutes, and then it comes time to Q&A and everything falls apart, right? They have prepared, maybe over prepared to the point that they've got everything down to the millisecond. And then they say, are there any questions? And someone goes, what about this? And you can just see their face, like the whole, everything, the color just drops out of it. And they're like, I never thought about that, right? So that could be a big issue. You want to have them try to learn how to deflect, learn how to say, that's a great question. I don't have that information in front of me right now, but if you email me after this, I'll be happy to get it to you when I'm back in my office on Monday. Something like that. You know what? That's not unprofessional. A lot of people think it is unprofessional to say, I don't have that in front of me, but you're not the internet, right? You don't have everything at the tip of your tongue. So to say, I want to make sure I get you the right information, tell you what, why don't I, and again, last slide, how many people on their last slide have the words thank you in like 150-point font instead of their email address to be contacted, right? You've got to have your email address, a contact point, so that if you have no time or there's a specific question, you're like, that's a great question. Why don't you email me about that? And I'll be happy to get you the thing. And also when you get that hijacker who comes in and says, in my specific, very unique situation, I have this thing, I want to talk about that. You can say, you know what, that's interesting, but it does not apply to 99% of the people here. Why don't you email me about that? And then we'll talk about it. So having the email address there is a great way to escape an uncomfortable Q&A situation. And it's not, it's not that awkward once you master having the poker face while you do it and don't show that I'm freaking out in front of everybody. All right, let's get to the fun part, feedback and assessment. In my course, I would have PDC 555. So here, P is preparation. It's a preparation score. It's talking about were they prepared to go up and use the technology? Nothing confused them. They didn't, get up here and go, how do I launch my PowerPoint presentation? And someone in the back yells, F5, right? So that's a preparation issue. They're like, oh, I want to turn off the lights, but I don't know which, do I do this one? Like, preparation issue. How do I turn on the projector? Preparation issue. Yeah. No comment, Tim, about the going over time on plenary speakers. Yeah, we could tell some stories about that if we wanted to, couldn't we? So preparation, again, if you don't know your content and you find yourself making all sorts of mistakes like that, big problem. D is delivery. So delivery is your eyes. Delivery is your body language. Delivery is your voice. Those are delivery issues where if I saw a big issue there, I would deduct from the original 5 points, and it might go down to 4.5. It might go down to 4, depending on how, terrible the mistake was. And I'm making some notes about that as well. And then the last 5 is content. Was it organized? Was it sufficient? Was it enough? So there's a lot of questions I might have about the content. So generally here now we've got a total score of 15. Their midterm exam might be 15% of their overall total grade in the course. So it works out quite well. oops, go the right way. For feedback, I find that students in my courses tend to be either way too nice or way too mean when they're giving feedback to their classmates. You can see them go, "Oh, I loved everything. That was fantastic." And you're like, "Okay, that's nice job there." Right? They're brown nosing more than they're actually being helpful. Or they're like, you messed up this. You forgot that. You didn't do it. And you can see the person just melting in front of the class. So instead, I would have them try to say, "I like how you gave me good eye contact. I like how you had a lot of energy. I like how you used more pictures than more words on your slides." Now, for less positive feedback, instead of saying "you sucked at X," you could say, "I wish you had looked at me more. I wish you had animated your slide so it wasn't so much shock when a new slide came up that I was, shocked by how much information was on there. It was too much." So again, you as the teacher can adopt this sort of feedback methodology, but I find it especially helpful for peer feedback so that they can think and say, "I like how you did this. I don't like how you did this." So I really think it's important not to give any grades or scores that are going to count for anything during the semester until they've practiced in front of the class. And in my case, I want them to have some time to really digest what I liked what they were doing, and I would say keep that up, or I want them to drop something and try to make something better, right? So no grades until they practice. And in my class, they would practice 3 times with feedback, and then the 4th time is graded. There's really not much excuse you can have at that point. It's like, I've told you 3 times already. At this point, it's up to you. You either can or you can't. Now, if you want to be really sneaky, and again, with tech, it's much easier, but back in the old days, we either had to use our cell phones, or I had a webcam connected that I could turn around to my laptop and I was recording them there. Because here's the thing, guys, at the end of the semester, students have this very sneaky habit of coming into your office a week after final exams and going, "The grade you gave me on my presentation 9 weeks ago, I don't think that was fair." And you're like, "Man, I don't remember that. That was 9 weeks ago. What are you talking about?" Right? But then now, if it's recorded, you could say, "You know what? Let's sit down and watch it together. And I will point out to you exactly the things that I had written down in my notes and why you got the score you got." Okay? So things like that can be very important. Yes, and the grade you gave me is always a fun thing when they say as opposed to the grade I earned. Yes, the score that you gave me, as if it's arbitrary and just pulled out of thin air. That's not the way it works. Okay, so those are the main things that I wanted to sort of touch on that are, I think, the keys. But if there's anything else as far as detail-oriented questions go, I'd be happy to talk about them now. Anything about the 4 main areas that we covered: planning, classroom activities, common errors, or feedback and assessment. If there's anything you want to jump in now, I'd be happy to address it. Turn it into a conversation. And you can dump it in the comments box or unmute your mic.
It looks to me, Tim, that you addressed most of the questions that came up as you were going. There was one question about if you'll make the slides available later, but that's maybe you're holding off on that.
Oh, sure. Yeah, why not?
And we can
I'll send them to you or Tim, and then you could post them on your site. That's fine.
Yeah, no problem.
Another question that came up on Twitter was about using these strategies with younger learners, even as young as, like, say, 6. I wonder if you have anything to say on that.
I wrote an article a couple of years ago after going to my daughter's elementary school open class, where the parents are invited to come in and watch how a class is run. No prep at all, ha ha ha, wink, wink, wink. It's not totally scripted that they know the parents are coming in. So what they did here is they had each kid before they wrote a poem about their favorite season. And so they all went up one by one with their heads down, like they were carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders, went up to the front of the classroom, read their poem, skulked back to their seats. It was brutal. And I could tell that the teacher had not given them any prep. Well, I take that back. It didn't look like the teacher had given them any prep of, try to up your energy level, be aware that you're on camera as soon as you stand up, not as soon as you start talking, right? When I say, okay, Jin Young, it's your turn, when she stands up and goes, ugh, and walks to the front of the room, everyone is watching you at that point, right? You're on camera, you're live. It's not something that only happens when you say, okay, let's begin. No, it happened at the beginning. So again, the awareness of being on camera is something they need to understand as well. And so again, try to look up every now and then, right? Put a little emotion. There was only one kid in my daughter's class who blew me away, and it wasn't my daughter. And I was very disappointed about that. I mean, Ellie was okay, but there was one kid, I was like, I want to adopt her. She gave a performance. It was fantastic. I was clapping in the back. And I felt like my daughter turned around, I was like, what are you doing? I'm like, that was good. What do you want? So that was really, really good. I like that.
There's some new additions to the questions there, Tim, as well.
Okay. Let me scroll up so see if I'm missing anything. Okay, let's talk about memorization first. Obviously, I'm anti-memorization because, number one, you should be, and I'm going to use air quotes here, an expert on your topic, which means you should know more about your topic than the majority of your audience members. Doesn't mean you have to know everything, but it should, if you're choosing something for the classroom, it's probably going to be something from your experience. Last summer, I went to Busan with my family. Okay. I didn't look up something on the internet about Busan. I have been there, and so I'm going to talk to you about my experience. We should, again, with language, if they're, A1 level, then it may be very difficult for them to do that. And so that could be tricky. They may need to memorize more. But certainly, if it's a longer presentation, you can't memorize that much. And when you do memorize, memorization plus stress equals and how many times have we seen that, right? Millions. And that comes from the kid that memorized and they're freaking out, so it all becomes fog in their brain and they fail. And we've sort of set them up to do that. So again, if they've organized, here's where PowerPoint can be a great tool, is that it tells them what to talk about next. It gives them the point. Now it's time to talk about this. And they go, oh, great. Yeah, I don't have to remember what I was going to talk about next. What I'm going to say about it, I should be able to do more naturally. And again, oh, yeah, it's time to talk about this. Click. Oh, yeah, it's time to talk about this. So something like that. Let's see. Some students are naturally outgoing. Yeah, okay. Again, some students are going to find it easier to make a presentation than others. I think that's only fair. Now, if you want to be the kind of teacher that says, okay, here is where your starting point was, and here is how much you improved over time, and I want to grade you on that, there are pros and cons of that. Some kids are going to fake their first ability and then, not have to make much improvement. Whereas if you say, this is the standard that I expect, this kid's already there without even having to try. This kid needs to try more to get to that standard, then that's the way you're going to do it. So again, same thing. Some people are naturally better at music or acting or whatever it is, and some need to practice and work on it more. But again, the key to me is when they finish your course or when they are through with your instruction, do they feel like they know what they should be doing? Whether or not they can do it yet is hard to control, but they should at least know what the expectations are. And if they want to put the practice and effort in, probably they will see that they're meeting. And honestly, the expectations for presentations out in the wild is pretty low. Not bad is good. Not bad is fine. And so when you see someone who's not bad, you're like, hey, that was pretty good. Because so many of them are bad that it can happen.
Yeah. Tim, can I jump in on that one a little bit? Because I got a couple of interesting stories or like experiences related to that. Because I actually think when you're doing presentations, I don't know if you've had this similar experience, but I think a lot of the time students whose English ability is just naturally very good, maybe they're just good language learners or they just naturally know English. So, it's another English class, I'm very good at this, and I can just sail through my presentations class and get an A very easily. And then some of the stuff like the hooks and like learning about PowerPoints and things like that, they might not pick up on. And I've also had kind of the opposite experience. I've had students who've come in with a really low English level compared to their peers. And they've done really good PPTs and they've done really good hooks and they've done all of these other things. And they've managed to catch up. So I think, kind of the approach which you take in the book, which is like a little bit maybe similar to task-based and stuff, you're also grading on how well they did as a presentation, just not just on their English level. I think it's I think in some ways doing presentations can be fairer. I don't know if you have any.
For sure. I've had students that have come in, the most fluent and gregarious students sometimes have the poorest organization. They ramble. They think they can just go up there and wing it, and because they're so fluent, and they ramble and it's incoherent and they go over their time. And I remember there was a lady who was not Korean who came in, and she was going to be this big hotshot in her government, and she actually is now. But she got up there and she went way over her time, and I kept deducting, and she ended up getting a B- in the overall course. And she was livid. But you know what? She emailed me about 2 years after the course and said, I never go over my time now, thanks to that. And worth it, right? Worth it. So if you get a life lesson out of a B- in a university course, worth it. That's how I feel about that. So yeah, I mean, for sure. Claire asked about the hooks. Again, the hook is the rationale. The hook is, why should I care? Why should I, being the audience member, care about this? Again, when you go to a presentation, if you see the abstract or you see the title. So basically, and hopefully like today, you logged on your Sunday, thank you very much, and hopefully came at it like this. Hey man, hey, this Tim Thompson guy, give me something, right? Give me something. And so a good hook today, luckily it's been promoted and it's got some promotion for it. Thanks, Michael Griffin. And so because of that, you said, okay, I'll give them my hour of my time, right? But the hook basically is justifying why the audience member should give their time and attention. What do they get, right? So today I'm going to talk to you about 3 reasons you should go to Busan on your next vacation to Korea so that you have a really amazing trip, right? You hear the hook there? The hook is so you have a really amazing trip. And then they're going, well, I do want to have a really amazing trip. Okay, time and attention, right? Today, I want to talk to you about how you can make it easier for your students to improve their presentation skills. Okay, yeah, okay, that sounds like something I want. Okay, so that's where the hook comes in. So again, it starts with a lovely greeting, then who am I? Why am I here? Why is that connected to what I'm talking about? But don't forget to say what you get out of it. And it's just a little simple addition there at the end of the complete introduction. Okay, let's see. Simon, just on grades. Okay, it's a little bit long. I didn't get it all. Simon, if you're there and you want to unmute and discuss it, we can do that.
Hi, Tim.
Hi.
No, honestly, sorry, it was just for the chat, really. Maybe you've already covered it. It was the thing you were saying about, not pressuring them with grades too soon, which I completely understand. But I just come across something recently for essays where it was saying to actually get the students to learn their topic a little bit more, start grading their planning. Not straight off, let them have some feedback on it and then grade the one on their reflections and things as well. And as I say, just asking the group if anyone else had tried that and whether it was working. There was a reply from someone there saying, yeah, it worked well for them. So
yeah, that's reasonable. And certainly in my course, I would have a sort of participation score that I would use for something like that. So there would be the attendance score, but there would also be a participation score, which in my case always starts at the maximum and they can only screw it up. They don't have to build it up. It sort of starts like, I start the semester saying, you already have an A+. Everyone here has an A+. Don't screw it up. But yet invariably each student would find a way to screw it up by missing a class, not following direction, not putting sufficient effort into something. But you know what? If you wanted to do something where the first 3 where I would not assess and grade them, you did want to do that at lower amounts and then say you can drop your lowest one or, something like that, go for that too. That would also work. That would also be possible.
Okay, thanks. So cool.
Anything else?
There's a new question in about how can we encourage students to improve pronunciation, and maybe under your system, are pronunciation mistakes assessed as preparation or delivery?
You know what? If it was something where it was a key element of their presentation and they had not put in the effort to learn how to say something correctly, yeah, I would deduct for that for participation. If it's something that where the first language influence came up and it's really affecting their pronunciation, we probably have to sit down and have a talk about that, right? Because I think we've all been to presentations by non-native speakers, and some of them have very strong accents or first language influence when they talk, and it can be challenging to understand them. And let's be honest, those are tougher presentations for the audience to sit through when they're really struggling to understand and they find it hard. So, but again, that's not something you can fix overnight. It's like grammar. You can't just automatically improve your grammar overnight. Pronunciation, especially when some first language influence or some errors have been fossilized, that can be really, really difficult. So that's not an easy fix, I would think.
And which category would you assess that under? In terms of delivery or preparation?
It's not something that I would necessarily have in my grading system. It's not a content issue. Like you said, if there was one word, right, that was very critical for them to explain what they're doing, for example, and they just winged it and didn't like look it up or ask anybody. And again, asking for help is a key here as well. Then I would say, yeah, that would be in the preparation score. Yeah, so Tim, you said that you think you could see that being a delivery thing. To me, more of a volume issue would be, they can control that. You can control your volume. You can control your energy level. It's hard to control your pronunciation in a second language. So that would be a lot tougher. Anything else? Yeah, I like what Joe shared about the intro method. Claire, would you like to say something about the 3 E's, energy, emotion, and emphasis? I think that's pretty similar to what I was talking about. So energy, enthusiasm, emphasis would be diction, or would it be hitting key words to show that they're important? Maybe something like that. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
So, yeah, I was just going to say, but I agree essentially with what you were saying, that perhaps pronunciation, if there is issues with understanding because of an individual word, of course, that would require some study before delivery. It would be a preparation stage, perhaps. But in terms of voice, I think in particular now we are increasingly working with people who are needing to deliver presentations online. The absence of body language, our voice becomes our calling card. And in terms of energy, I think that could be, what are you delivering? If it's sales, then you're going to have, that could be sort of quite a melodic intonation, because you're going to be quite persuasive and you want to bring people to your way of thinking. And so, that then connects to emotion, doesn't it? If you're going to give, perhaps you might have to give bad news, and that would see pausing or a drop in intonation, an emphasis, those keywords, in terms of what you could be selling or what your core message is. So I hope that goes some way to explaining what I meant by those. Thank you.
Totally. But what's funny is I think if you're selling a BMW, your energy level is going to be different than if you're selling a Toyota, right? If you're selling a BMW, you're selling class, you're selling prestige. And so you're not going to be like, ooh, hey, look at this. But if you're selling a Toyota, you might be like, oh my God, we've got to really bump it up to show, that this is a great value car. Where a BMW, if you say, hey, you got to get this BMW, it'd be like, what's wrong with you? I'm not that kind of person. So again, knowing your audience there and knowing what sort of thing you're talking about could also be quite different. And, again, when you're with a live audience, you feel the audience's energy and it can keep bumping you up. Where when you're online like today, we're not getting that cool eye contact and the nodding that we love to have. Thanks, Mike. The nodding that we love to see. Oh, beautiful stuff, guys. Yeah. The nodding that we love to see, like people go, or even just the look of like, what? And then we can rephrase, we can say it again, something like that. We really miss this online, the interaction. And, and that's one of the key things about the importance of eye contact as well, is to sort of be reading your audience. The good teachers out there are always sort of scanning and going, okay, are you with me? Are you with me? Are you with me? Where that's much harder to do when there's, a scrolling list of people's pictures at the bottom. It's not the same thing. And I don't want everyone's mic on and going, I don't want that either. So it really can be a tricky thing. Kevin, the widgets sounds interesting. I don't know much about that, but you want to put a website up there, we could always take a look.
Widgets is that's an ELT workshop favorite. So yeah, it's a really good book.
Good. Okay, have to take a look at that. Thanks for sharing.
Can I ask
anything else? I don't want to go over too much over people's time. Oh yes, Mike asked, will there be an email address? Absolutely. So that's the good time to put in the email address. You can reach me directly there if you wish. If there's anything you think, it's only my question, not for others. Thanks. Thanks for putting that in there, Mike. Good. Okay. I guess as a sort of summary, sort of takeaway, it bothers me when I think back of how I was asked as a kid, as a university student, as a high school student, please come to the front of the class and do X, where there had been zero training of, when you come to the front of the room, please keep these things in mind. This is a good way to do it. This is not a good way to do it. Or even feedback and follow up. When I sit down, they go, okay, Tim, I like the way you did this. You really need to watch out the way you did this. So I think it's really important that before we ask our kids to come to the front of the room, even if it's not in a presentation course, just any course, science course, English course, whatever it is, before we ever ask the kids to come to the front of the room, we prepare them to do that. And so that's what I wanted today's tips, hopefully to help you do, whether you're teaching this specifically or just as part of a larger course. So thanks for coming and joining us on a Sunday. Really appreciate it. And like again, there's the email address if you have any questions. And yes, take a look at the book. It'll cover this and more.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much, Tim. That was a really, really great presentation. And I was kind of, we're doing the little private messages with Mike, and Mike was kind of saying, "Oh yeah, we're so happy it's really good." And yeah, it's always nice to see when the presentation is about how to teach presentations, to see such a professional and good presentation. So
it would be terrible if it was not a good presentation. That would be a bad look.
Yeah,
that'd be a really bad look. So,
you know, those who can do, and those who can't teach. That's what they say, right?
So yeah, thank you. And yeah, do check out the book. It's on our website. It's also on Amazon. We get more money, and Tim gets more money if you buy it off our website, not Amazon. So do go there. And yeah, it's absurdly reasonably priced. So we should be charging more for it. So do go check.
Every nickel counts. Thanks, guys.
Okay, thanks everyone. And see you soon.
Thanks.